So this is gonna be a very unique video. Maybe you've heard of the German filmmaker and storyteller, Niklas Christl.
From the kid with a camcorder to the filmmaker with millions of views, from the guy who felt stuck in his hometown to the entrepreneur living abroad, and from the average runner to the athlete completing a marathon.
There it is, guys, there it is.
Those videos inspired millions of people to take action in their own lives, and it brought me more fulfillment and freedom than I ever imagined.
In my opinion, he's one of the best cinematic filmmakers on YouTube. After 3 years of disappearing to work on his digital film academy, he had a comeback video. And this is a very robust hour-long documentary of where he's been over the last 3 years.
Back then, I would have told you this story from the pretty side. I'd say that I traveled the world, lived a life most people dream of, and built a company by staying driven. But the truth is that I fell apart. Behind the scenes, I was collapsing, breaking, and sinking into a darkness I had never known.
And this documentary is very profound because he goes in depth of his journey over the last 3 years, how he started to lose his sense of purpose. He started to have suicidal ideations because the level of identification he had with outcomes was really starting to give him inner turmoil. Now, the very interesting thing about this is during this period, Niklas and I worked together.
In the middle of planning my own death, I stumbled across a guy named Ryan on YouTube, and it felt like he was speaking directly to me. So when I saw he offered one-on-one coaching, I knew this was my last lifeline.
My heart feels like it's just in cling wrap right now because I feel so much anxiety.
He reached out to me at one of his lowest points, and we began to peel back all of the layers of all of the stories and narratives that he had inside of him. And let me tell you that there was a lot to unpack.
You know, you've talked about suicidal thoughts and things like that. And anytime there's a feeling of that, that just means that there's a piece of you that wants to die. But it doesn't mean that you have to die.
A lot of high achievers, entrepreneurs, we're so focused on what we think our purpose is that we tend to lose ourselves, placing all our worth on outcomes, the work that we do, when the answer is oftentimes to slow down a little bit and to just go within yourself. Now, it's very interesting because every client that I work with, I keep everything confidential. It's one of the most important aspects of this work for me. But Niklas, by releasing this hour-long documentary, he essentially shares everything. There's even 20 minutes or so of footage of conversations between him and I. And what's amazing about this is while we were working together, I had no idea that this would be in his next film, essentially. So one thing I'll say is after you watch this video, you should absolutely go to Niklas Christl's channel and watch the video titled, "I Had to Die so that I could live." Watching this film for me was very profound because I help a lot of guys. I've got a lot of different clients that I work with, and it's very rare to see it documented to this extent in a very beautiful, cinematic, artistic storytelling kind of way. And what's amazing is I was struck with the magnitude, and I was humbled to see how when we don't even realize it, when we show up to do the work that we're called to do, God, the divine, works through us to an extent that sometimes we don't even realize. But in this video, I just wanted to give you 3 lessons that you can take away from this little documentary. Number 1, the chase will never be enough. Niklas had everything. He had views, he had freedom, he had people's admiration, but he was still haunted by the feeling of never being enough.
Nobody gives a fuck about your face on YouTube until you've earned it. So shut up, log in, and get it done.
The dark voice started to run my life. It whipped me from one lesson to the next without ever granting me a moment of rest. Lesson 5.6, main cameras. Lesson 5.7, 5.8, 5.10, 5.11, 12, 14, 15. I was shooting for more than 10 hours per day, but it felt like no take was ever good enough.
And I personally know this feeling all too well. This is what initially brought me into this work. When I started to go within myself and unravel all of the shadows and begin to heal, I started to realize the value in this kind of work. A lot of times we tend to mistake movement for meaning. But there's that popular quote that you can gain the whole world and still lose your soul. While achievement is great and it can be enjoyed, it will never bring you to that place of inner fulfillment and peace.
So there's this war essentially inside of you where your mind's constantly yelling, no, we need to work on this because we need to achieve this outcome. Because once we achieve this outcome, then I will truly be happy. But then the funny thing is that as soon as you achieve whatever that outcome is, it moves to another location.
There's always a next goalpost, there's always a new milestone. And if you over-identify with outcomes and goals, then ultimately you can lose yourself in them. Sometimes we need to pause the chase and deeply feel where our worth comes intrinsically. Obviously, until I got to a point where I was able to be open to spirituality and be open to a higher power, none of that was possible. Number 2, the only way out is through. I've worked with some men or entrepreneurs who haven't cried in years. Ever since we're little boys, we've got this thing ingrained in us that we have to either hold it all in or it's perceived as weakness. But a lot of times freedom comes from surrendering to the breakdown, letting yourself feel everything fully, letting yourself grieve the past, grieve past versions of yourself. The nervous system needs to release stored emotions. And until that happens, you will be carrying it around with you, some people for the rest of their lives.
The pain in my heart made it clear that I had to finally listen. And that's when I started doing breath work. At first, it felt like nothing. But then, all the emotions broke through at once.
I remember when I was 17 years old and my dad took his own life, it wasn't until nearly 2 decades later that I finally felt everything and the full impact of healing was able to emerge. So understand that pain isn't a problem to fix, it's an invitation to feel what needs to be felt. Men, specifically high achievers, tend to be terrible at this. And the reason for this is that men tend to be very logical, but logic can never heal what the body continues to carry around.
There's just, just emotions that I haven't felt and they just come out,
And there's different aspects of your heart chakra that's basically opening, and that's a transformative experience, and there's going to be a lot of emotions that come to the surface.
Ever since I started working together with Ryan, it's like I've just been crying every week, almost multiple times, but it just feels good. It just feels like I'm letting go of everything that just built up over the last few years, over my whole life, kind of.
Whenever there's still shadows within you, that light that kind of comes in is purging those things. So there will be tears of sadness, grief, things that need to be released.
The third lesson is that surrender is actually the doorway to power. And I know that's very counterintuitive. We hold on to things. We've got this internal contraction. But surrender, when done right, is very expansive. A lot of times it feels like finally exhaling after holding a breath for your entire life. And this oftentimes involves going from the head to the heart. The heart is the doorway to your true self, and it is the doorway to the divine, but it takes a very, very deep surrender. And unfortunately, a lot of times that takes getting to the brink of extreme suffering, hitting rock bottom. This is exactly what I had to go through, and tons of other men have to go through before they finally let go and surrender to the unfolding of life. And that doesn't always mean you have to give up on your dreams, but there's an open-handedness to it. You understand that the dreams, the goals, the achievements are secondary, but who you are goes far, far beyond that.
Surrender. This word kept echoing in my mind. The more I followed it, the more something opened up within me. And then one day, it happened. I felt a presence I couldn't explain, a light that felt eternal, a force greater than anything I'd ever known. In that moment, I knew I had met what people describe as God.
I don't know if it was a connection to God, because I still feel a bit weird of talking about God because I've been atheist and so mind-driven for such a long time. But yeah, it was just a super strong feeling of just trust in the universe.
Dude, yes, man. Oh my God. This is it, man.
Strength without tension, power without ego is what true divine masculinity is. There's a verse in scripture that says the meek will inherit the earth. But in order to get to that point, you have to surrender who you think you are. Parts of yourself have to actually die. And it's terrifying for the ego. But on the other side of that death is true freedom. Another extremely moving aspect of Niklas's film was his reconciliation, not just with himself, but with his family and his father.
Now it was time to open up.
Ready.
I told him about my depression, my suicidal thoughts, and the anxiety attacks I had battled. But I also shared the breakthroughs I'd experienced through breathwork and my first encounters with God. Deep down, I feared he might judge me, but instead, he accepted me exactly as I was.
We gave ourselves, like, I think one of the longest hugs. and then afterwards, man, I came in here to shower, and bro, I just cried, man. I just cried, like, deeply. But not the crying of, like, sadness, but the crying of just so much gratitude, you know? This is everything I kind of wished for the last year, you know?
A lot of times when you start to see the light within you, you'll begin to see that light in other people. And sometimes friends, family, they'll notice something very different in you. And what's profound about this is that it reinforces that the only way to change the world, right? Everybody's always like, oh, we've got to change the world, we've got to make it better. But really all you have to do is work on yourself. And from that outpouring, from your cup overflowing, then you will begin to impact others in a truly profound and meaningful way. Watching Niklas's video gave me a very, very deep reminder of why I do this work. Because every man has within them that higher version of themselves. And by tapping into that version of yourself, you create just a beautiful story that impacts the world. So all that being said, if you made it this far, go watch Niklas's film. And Niklas, if you're watching, I love you, brother. I'm very grateful that we got to work together. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your story. I always have to squeeze this book recommendation into all my videos. A good place for you to start is to read Letting Go: The Pathway of Surrender by Dr. David Hawkins. Just trust me, it's a little bit repetitive, but it's repetitive on purpose. It'll start to shine a light on some of your inner demons, if you will. Finally, if you are a man who is in a very similar situation to Niklas, maybe you've built achievements, you've got the external trappings of success, but on the inside, there's something missing. You don't feel like you fully know what your purpose is, you don't fully have fulfillment, and all of the peace that you thought that you would gain from external achievements just hasn't arrived. Then I want you to click the link in the description, fill out the application. We'll potentially hop on a discovery call and see if we're a good fit to work together. I will say that I'm very selective these days with who I work with, and it is not cheap because it is truly one-on-one coaching. I don't do any kind of group coaching because I have found that when it's tailored to the individual, then that's when it's the most impactful. And I'm very, very hands-on with the people that I work with. So if this sounds like a good fit for you, you're ready to unlock your internal power, to find that peace and happiness that goes beyond external circumstances, and fill out the application. What's cool about this too is that 9 times out of 10, when you do this inner work and find that inner fulfillment, you end up having more external success anyway, but you're no longer attached to it. It doesn't become your whole identity anymore. But the things that you create, the actions that you take, come from a much deeper and pure intelligence. And that, my friend, is how we change the world. Another thing that I want to mention is that if you are a guy and you aren't at that place, you haven't achieved much, you probably can't afford to work with me, but you resonate with all these things, then I would just encourage you to go down the rabbit hole of my channel, read that book that I recommended. There's tons of profound breakthroughs and work that could happen just from that alone. Working with me personally is just hand-holding, if you will. I know that not everybody can work with me, but a huge part of this YouTube channel isn't just my one-on-one clients, it's about building a body of work that all men can benefit from who feel called to this deeper essence that I've been talking about. So the videos on this channel will always be free. It's my community service work, if you will. So don't feel excluded. You're just as much a part of this as everybody else. That's all I got for you today. Let me know in the comments your biggest takeaway. Go watch Niklas's full film right now. You are loved, You matter, and you've barely scratched the surface of what you're capable of. I'll talk to you soon.